Hola, my people. Okay, this video I'm going to try to cover, to some extent, the understanding of the first-person spectacle I've been speaking of in secular theology. As a sort of a preparation for us going ahead with that to, developing our own working theory regarding theology in general. And especially, exploring and investigating various specific religions and their beliefs and their mythologies, so to speak, their stories and whatnot. But the general idea behind it is going to be eternality and singularity and what we call onlyness. And these are the three applicable. I'm trying to think. This is on the spot, as I haven't really. This is something that I kind of have a tendency to do naturally, just something that I've learned to do over time, a certain perspective I've learned to adopt over time and use it for my own personal investigations. And I haven't trained somebody specifically. Like I've trained a few people in swordsmanship, I've trained a few people in spotting, I've trained a few people in alchemy and just general time mechanics for the most part. One person I trained in verbiage and the method by which they communicate for the most part. I had to jump through hoops to kind of make them aware of the fact that they do in fact present certain implications through their speech, what they say, the way they say it, that can be harmful for other people and thereby harmful for them in reflection, harmful for them for the most part, considering that it puts them in a dim light. But that is another story. I'll tell that story sometime. But that was a very special student that was difficult to train, and we're still training with her. We're still in the process of training her. She's wandered off, but I honestly, aside from Megan, and that's it. Aside from Megan, I don't remember a single student I've had who hasn't gone and wandered off for a while. Either I pissed them off, or they just couldn't understand something, or they got tired of it, bored with it at some point, and just kind of gave up. But they always come back. So I mean, not a single one of them has ever not come back and finished up for the most part. So, but I haven't actually trained a student to this level before ever, because I haven't trained somebody in this regard since Megan. I haven't gone over everything and given somebody the bulk of what I have to offer. And when I was training Megan, I didn't actually know this. I didn't have this. This is something that, in fact, you could say is still developing in me, and it's something that is unfinished in me even. So when I try to give it to you here, it's going to be, as I said, it's on the spot. I don't really know what I'm talking about here. I'm going to try to explain it as best I can and give you a general understanding of what I understand of it, which is not the totality of it by any measure. But I could explain it, and I'm making this up on the spot, so I didn't plan for this, but I felt like it needed to be done. If I were to try and explain rules or laws to it, kind of values that are representative of it, I would say that it's those three that I just presented: eternality, singularity, and onlyness. Onlyness is a word that I made up, and I gave to a few people. I gave it to you earlier on, towards the very beginning of the initiative, of launching the initiative. I don't know if any of you remember that, but I gave you that word and its definition there. But I'll do it again here. Onlyness is the loneliness is the feeling of being alone, being left out, and being isolated and without others, and kind of sad about it and crappy about it. Loneliness is being lonely. You know what that is. Um, Aloneness is the sense of being uh, comfortable and attuned to loneliness, so to speak, or not really feeling lonely, but being comfortable with yourself alone and not requiring other people to be with you, having that quality that you're capable of being a lone wolf type. That's aloneness. Onlyness is the understanding, the actual feeling and consideration of you being connected and one with all things, and that all things are one, and that you actually attribute to your personality the general understanding that everyone else is a facet or a piece of your personality, that everything that you encounter is a part of what you are, and you actually live that with that feeling in mind, with that understanding in mind, that that's actually who and what you are, is one with all things. That's onlyness. Or, well, that's oneliness. That the original word I made was oneliness, which would explain is described exactly as I just defined it. Onlyness is actually goes a step further by identifying that not only are you one with all things, that you're connected with all things, that all things are a part of you and you are a part of all things, but that in fact that is the only existing thing, that there is nothing else, and that you are in fact, you are presently alone as everything that exists. It's like the whole of the universe exists in a vacuum. There's nothing outside of it, and you are one with all of it. Thereby, you are alone in the void, and that's what onlyness is. That's obviously that's going to be something difficult for, perhaps potentially difficult for a lot of you to adopt. I'm not sure what point in your personal evolution each of you are at. So, I mean, that might be something you already understand, but for the most part, I'm going to go ahead and guess that it's likely something that's going to be problematic for you guys to utilize. But that's what we have to try and use here. We have to look at things from that perspective, that there is only this, and this is everything, and you are it. So, that's probably the most important one. Eternality is the understanding that that there's timelessness in play, and this you get when you identify any spotter that communicates with the living world as experienced that kind of, what I call it, the watermark of God, that you can tell when the living world is definitely communicating directly with you, because there's a sense of timelessness to it. It can tell you things that you don't know until tomorrow. It can warn you, or not necessarily warn you, but it can identify happenings that take place later. It you'll get what I'm saying. Most of you probably already get what I'm saying, but it's kind of like it has a prophetic nature to it, that it can be, here and tomorrow at the same time, and be presenting, on that level. And that's how spot casting works, by the way. That's pretty cool. We're going to teach you spot casting throughout this course, throughout the principal dynamics course, but this particular video is specifically for secular theology. Eternality is pretty much the general consensus understanding that there is only one time, that there actually really is only one time, and that it has a holographic nature to it. It has like sort of pieces that break off in fractals when you look at it from a different perspective. When your perspective shifts, the time appears to change, but it's kind of an illusion, and there is really only one time, and that's now. And there is no past, there is no future, and it's the alpha and the omega. Everything that has happened, everything that will happen, actually is happening now, or in fact has just happened, you could say. So that's we're throughout the course, we're gonna make that clearer for you. You know, we'll provide examples of what we mean by that, what I mean by that. Sorry, I sometimes I forget that soul mechanics is just me. um, what I mean by that. And again, these are things that I've never been able to teach somebody. So anybody who's watching, you may be the first viewer, you may be the first person to get this, and I've never met anybody else who has it. So you may be the first in this regard. I've never come across anyone else who has this kind of an understanding. And honestly, I can't see how that's the case, because it seems like at this point, and now after having discovered it, it seems like such fucking ridiculously common sense. I don't see how I could have thought any different way before. Anyway, singularity. Obviously, singularity is kind of a culmination of the two and all things, but singularity, I guess singularity is just a term I used really to cover that, to cover the both of those, that there's one existing time that is happening right here and now, and that every time is connected in that way, that every time is now. Every possible considered time is now, and this is how we operate time mechanics as well, by the way. This is how spot casting works, and this is how, I guess generally you could say that our original consideration of time mechanics in regards to being an alchemical process of attaching senses, sensory perceptions to chemical triggers in the brain, causing for those two neurons to line up in the brain so that you can actually use sensory data to activate chemical triggers and cause for physiological results to occur. That's pretty much the same thing. That is what spot casting is, really. I mean, I'd have to say, I don't know for sure yet, because spot casting is something that I just recently got into and actually learned how to practice and do, like really do. And you guys are the guinea pigs. Maybe not you. You guys, the audience here, maybe not you, but the initiative, the members of the initiative are the guinea pigs. And thank anybody who's a member of the initiative. Thank you so much, because you, just being there, you allowed for me to unlock this part of myself and to discover this kind of ability. And it, once I get it down and I'm able to hand it out, which is we're gonna do through the course of this course of Principal Dynamics, we're going to do just that. In fact, it's one of the primary objectives. I'm going to teach you how to use spot casting. Once I have that down to a science, it's a new science. I mean, for the most part, as far as I can tell. It seems there might have been like shamans or mystics or, generally high grade spotters, class S spotters, I suppose you could say, throughout history that were capable of doing this. I'm sure that a lot of them were capable of doing this, but there are certain indications that maybe it was a primary practice of certain spotters throughout history, but it's actually not. It's not something that's ever been clearly determined. So I don't know. I could very well be the first person to discover this and to make an attempt at presenting it. But singularity pretty much covers the both of those together, that all things are one and all things are only. There is only one thing, there is only one time. Even really onlyness in that regard kind of covers it. Singularity is a term I like to use as a scientific kind of term. I used to use it. I don't anymore, obviously, because I made up onlyness, and it pretty much gets the idea across. So these are, I suppose you could say, those two are really just that one. And eternality falls into it, singularity falls into it. Onlyness defines the both of those and all of it. That there's only one presence that exists. You are not separate from the God, the actual real God character. You are not separated from it. You are not divided from anyone. There's no division in anything. It's all one, and it's all happening right now. And that's the spectacle, the first person spectacle you have to use to investigate. You're going to have to utilize to engage and negotiate our investigation here that we're gonna launch together, and it's gonna be super cool and super fun. But that's all I have to say right now for this particular video. This is gonna be a part of principle dynamics, and then we'll switch back to secular theology as soon as I'm ready. I have to do a little more research on the matter. There's certain religions that I don't quite understand completely yet, and honestly, I'm not really familiar with what creationism is even supposed to be or mean. But from what I can tell, it's a really stupid idea that doesn't make any sense, at least not scientifically speaking, not from a realistic perspective. But at the same time, I'm going to go ahead and bet that I can make it make sense, and I can actually combine it with its opposing factors. Like evolution and creation are not mutually exclusive. They are the same thing. Uh, Religion and mysticism are the same thing. Science and religion are still the same thing. They're, from the perspective that I have, as I just attempted to explain to you, it seems like a stupid idea to begin with to me. That you guys seem to think there's some kind of an argument transpiring here, or it harkens right back to that Tower of Babel scenario, where you don't understand what you're saying to each other, and you're not actually arguing. Nothing's actually broken here. You're trying to fix it, but it ain't broken. There is no difference between the two sides of this supposed argument, and we'll get to that too. Obviously, that's going to be one of the primary objectives in the secular theology course. So that's it. That's about as much as I can say about it. I can't think of anything else that comes to mind in that regard. That's how we are going to utilize a first-person spectacle to identify with our investigatory capacity in secular theology. That's what we're going to use to look at differing religions once I've done my affair, once I've done a decent amount of research into them to be able to speak on them, as though I'm knowledgeable in them, where in fact I never really, a lot of religions I never really cared too much about. I mean, I found the ones that hit home fairly early on, and I became obsessed with theology in regards to those, namely Buddhism, Hinduism, Taoism, and then Christianity's like a really weird kind of puzzle that I've been trying to put together. I'm trying to piece it together and figure it out, because it does have a lot of sensible realities in it that we're going to show you by using that first person spectacle. But it honestly, really, bottom line is utilizing that spectacle, utilizing that onlyness, eternality, singularity, first person spectacle to investigate anything, it's all real. It all makes sense. It has to, because it's not separate from anything else. It's all happening right now. It's all true. It's all of it's true. There is nothing you have ever heard or been told or considered that is not real. So we're gonna try and point that out here. And if it seems crazy, good, because I mean, ultimately, if you follow the course, you're gonna learn that you're gonna see this happen. You're gonna understand it, and then you're gonna be crazy too. So, and that's where we want to get you, because the sane version of humanity as it stands is nowhere near the actual definition of that word. People are crazy. People, as they negotiate their lives, as they maneuver through life, their understanding, their characteristics, their general kind of persona, most people, as society as a whole, really, is so far off from anything that is sensible or rational or reasonable. And so, if I'm crazy, we want to get you crazy too. And that's exactly what we're going to do. As Sock said in The Peaceful Warrior, we want to get you out of that mind because you're trapped in it. We want to get you out of your mind. We're going to take out the trash. So that's what we're going to do. Thank you very much for watching. I hope I was able to describe that, at least, get it across to some extent. And I hope that it helps you understand what we're going to be doing here. In any case, that's a very useful general spectacle to use in daily life throughout anything you do, specifically for spotting and communicating with the world. You're going to want to keep that in play. So ultimately, it is a main course in principal dynamics. Thank you for watching. Kila Salai, Teriyune Siara Namaste.